Welcome to the recording of this Ask the Expert session that took place as part of the Partners 2020 programme. This session was hosted by our Geography Careers consultant, Ailsa MacLeod, and she was joined by our guest, Naomi Foster, who is the North Pennines AONB Geology Projects Officer. Naomi will be starting off with a presentation to tell you a little bit more about herself and her career to date, before Ailsa leads her in a Q&A with questions that have been submitted by you, the partner students. Without further ado, we're going to hand over to Naomi for her presentation.
So I'm Naomi and I work for the North Pennines Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty Partnership, which can be quite a mouthful. I'll come back to what that actually means in a moment. And my job is Geology Projects Officer. So it's all about engaging people of all ages with the geology of the area that is the North Pennines. So to give you a bit of background, when my slide advances, there we go. AONBs, Areas of Outstanding Natural Beauty, there are 38 of them in England and Wales. And you can see the kind of spread across the country there and points out where we are up in the north. So my area covers parts of County Durham and Northumberland and Cumbria as well. And it's actually one of the largest of those AONBs. So these are areas that are similar to national parks, and the aim is to protect the environment and to enhance and conserve natural beauty of that area for the benefit of wildlife and for people. And this network of areas works together quite a lot as well, and often with the national parks as well, to try and have kind of joined up thinking about conservation across the country and to use the resources that we have as best as we can. The area, as well as being an AONB, is the UNESCO Global Geopark. So geoparks, it's a designation of UNESCO, a bit like you might have come across World Heritage Sites. And this map just shows the ones that are in Europe, but it's a network all over the world of areas that have fantastic geology, but also that use that geology for the purposes of conservation and for education and to benefit local communities, which is often through tourism and sustainable development. So as I say, that's just the European ones. There are currently 147 areas like this all over the world, and they're all different sizes. They're managed in quite different ways, and they're funded in different ways as well. But you can see there that there's 7 at the moment within the UK. So the North Pennines looks a bit like this. And as I said, my job is particularly to do with the geology of the area, but it's a landscape that has things like 40% of England's upland hay meadows, which is a really important environment, a really important habitat for lots of wildlife. And we've also got large areas of blanket peat bog, which again is important habitat for ecology, but also it's a really good store of carbon, so it helps as well in the fight against climate change. My bit's geology, but I have, there's about 30 people working for the AONB partnership at the moment, and my colleagues do all sorts of different things as well. So there are people working in things like heritage, telling the historical stories of the area, ecology and wildlife conservation, peatland restoration. So quite a lot of different areas there and different things. Obviously, I can only speak, this is a sort of industry seminar, I can only speak from my particular experience, but there are loads of other things out there as well. So what's my job? That is a very good question. I do all sorts of different things. I plan events and run those events for adults, for families. I go into schools and do workshops, or sometimes work with school trips that come out to visit us. I've worked sometimes with artists to run workshops or to do art installations to bring the public in, like the one you can see in the top right corner there. And arts are actually a really good way of engaging people. It kind of connects with different people and helps them to see the landscape in a different way. I write things like leaflets and stuff for the web and panels like one you can see there. So there's quite a variety. A bit less variety at the moment, of course, because I'm currently working from home and not doing any face-to-face events. So that's been a bit different. Which means that my job involves lots of different skills. There's project management in there, there's communication and the face-to-face talking with people, the kind of general people skills, and all the kind of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So the planning of events and the administration and the budgeting and all that kind of stuff. So, well, how did I get here is a very good question. Oh, something I missed out there was a couple of my favourite things about the job. I really enjoy that meeting with people, the chance to talk to people and share things that I think are interesting and fun. And I see my job as being about inspiring people to take an interest in the world around them and engage with the natural environment. And another great thing about it is that network that I was describing all around the world of the geoparks. And meeting up with people from that network has been fantastic because there's lots of really passionate people in such interesting places as well. And it gives you a chance to kind of step back from the job and get a bit of perspective and see how other people do things and think about how and why we actually do what we do. Now, how did I get here is a good question, because I was never one of those people who had a plan. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I still don't really. I didn't have a clear kind of career path. And it's fair to say that this kind of sector, the sort of conservation or environmental education or the science communication side of things, can be quite tricky to get into. There are lots of different roles out there, but there aren't necessarily the sort of training programs. You don't really have graduate schemes, and the jobs are quite popular because on paper, at least, it looks like a really fun thing to do, and you don't have to sell your soul. It's quite positive. But that means that there are lots of people willing to do those things. So also the kind of jobs often don't pay that well because there's always more people willing to do it, and the sector, the funding, isn't necessarily available to have lots and lots of employees. I'm currently funded by a project with the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So it's grant funding for a 3-year programme carrying out lots of different activities to engage people with the area. And also there's a European project as well that I'm working on that's supported by the European Regional Development Fund. So that's how most of my colleagues work as well, that we're on kind of temporary grant funding, and we have a small core budget from national government and the local councils as well that covers sort of management and some core functions like administration and communications. As I say, I didn't have a plan, and my background is that at university, I was actually at Durham University. I graduated 10 years ago now, and I studied natural sciences, which is kind of a pick and mix degree. You can pick bits from different topics. So I did some geology, some biology, and some archaeology. So I didn't actually study geography, you will have noticed. But one of the fantastic things about my degree was that I got that broad range, and that's what I'm really interested in. I'm partly just indecisive. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I tried to do a bit of everything. But one of the fantastic things about geography is that you also get that kind of variety. There are different areas that you can specialise in, but you also get a really broad range of skills, which can be really useful. So in terms of careers, making use of those skills, making sure employers know those skills that you've developed is fantastic. So things like fieldwork, developed loads of great skills, and you'll find through any degree program that you're doing things like presentations, working together with other people, developing research skills. One of those pictures is me on an archaeological dig. So fieldwork's definitely one of the ways that you build skills. I'm a guide leader, so I did lots with a student scout and guide group just for fun. So things like the kayaking and walking in the snow that you can see there. But I was also a leader volunteering with a guide group for the whole time I was at university, and again, that was some really useful skills. Obviously, university is about so much more than a degree. There's all that social side of things and things that you can get involved in. But if what you feel like you need to do is have a job to support yourself at university, that's fantastic experience as well. Because what you'll come out with is lots of evidence of things like say you were working in a bar, you'd have team working, you'd have customer service, you'd have time management, you'd have communication, all of that kind of thing. So you'd probably be well ahead of where I was when I graduated 10 years ago. I loved my university experience. I feel like I did so much. My subjects were interesting, and I met loads of great people, and still came out of it not knowing what I wanted to do. So I applied for a few different things, mostly unsuccessfully. But then it didn't take too long before I got an interview and got a job at the Centre for Life, which any of you that are local to Newcastle might be familiar with. I started as an explainer, who are the people who are kind of around to chat to visitors and teach workshops for school groups and perform science demonstration shows, that sort of thing, within the Science Centre. So it's mostly families and school groups that I was engaging with there. And then I did that particular role for a little over 2 years. And then a job came up in the public engagement team. So I moved more sort of behind the scenes in the office, but developing shows, writing planetarium shows, developing activities to do with families, running a program of preschool days, that sort of thing, and then training the explainers who actually did the delivery of most of those activities. So I was there in total for about 8 years, and did all kinds of things. And the skills I got from that are very much what's made me able to do the job that I do now. So the communication, the face-to-face things, training people, and also that kind of project management and admin, and all the discussions I had and the things I learned from the people I worked with there were really important. And that gets me to where I am now. So, as I say, engaging people with geology is what I do. It would be fair to say that geology is not really my thing. I don't think I've got a thing. If I did have a thing, it would be people rather than the subject. My areas of interest could have taken me down all sorts of routes. I could have gone down the archaeology route. I could have been tour guiding. I could have been teaching. All sorts of different ways that it could have gone. And as I say, my thing really is working with people, and that's what I really enjoy. So I just wanted to give you my kind of top advice on careers. I can only speak from what I've done, obviously, and I have a friend who says that careers are a thing that happen in retrospect. You only work out how you got to be where you are when you're looking back at it. But my top advice, don't give up. As I say, it's a difficult jobs market. It's a really difficult jobs market right now, but hopefully by the time you graduate, at least things will have calmed down a bit. There are lots of different things out there. Keep on trying, don't let it get you down. Keep it broad. So spread the net wide. Think about all the different things that relate to what you're interested in. There are likely to be so many different things and things that you haven't even thought of. Expect to start at the bottom and work your way up. You don't come out of a degree having all the skills you need to do, for example, the job I do now. I learned a lot along the way. But at the same time, it is always worth a try. Don't look at something and go, oh, I don't think I'm going to get that, and therefore I'm not going to bother. It's still worth a try, because you can bet that all the super privileged, super confident people are going to go for it, and that does not mean that they are better for the job. Particularly when at university, say yes to everything that you feel like you can. Take all the opportunities, do loads of different things, try new stuff, get to know people, but also don't spread yourself too thin. Don't try and do too much, because ultimately your mental health and being happy in what you're doing is what's really important. So try everything, but don't feel bad if you can't. And find out what it is that matters to you. Because doing the exact dream job that you are really passionate about might be the best thing for you. Or for you, the important thing might be to have a stable job, to know that you're not going to run out of funding next year, or to know that you can work Monday to Friday and have your weekends off. Whatever it is that's important to you, you'll eventually work that out. And it is absolutely okay not to have a plan. You have plenty of time yet. Don't worry about the fact that some people around you will be knowing exactly what steps they need to take. If that's not you, that is totally fine. As I always say, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So that's my personal experience. That's my story so far. And if you do have any questions, please ask.
Thanks, Naomi. If you want to unshare your screen, and then I have to ask something though. On one of your slides, there was a picture of you at the Stand Comedy Club.
There was indeed, yes.
What were you doing there? Was that part of the job, or was that something personal?
Yes, sort of. So one of the things that I was sometimes involved in running when I was at Life is an evening called Bright Club, which is all about getting academics to do stand-up comedy. And we were slightly short of people on one occasion of the event. So as a member of staff, I volunteered to do a comedy set. So I did an 8-minute comedy set at the Stand Club, which was both terrifying and also fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Especially when you weren't expected to be doing it. Well done, you. I also agree with what you were saying about, with your natural sciences degrees, very similar in terms of geography, that there's so much open to you. And sometimes people panic about, I must make a choice now. But as you were saying in your top tips, it's okay not to have a plan. But I suppose when you didn't have a plan, when you were at university and, as you said, other people kind of did have a plan or whatever, did it make you nervous? How did you kind of overcome that? It's okay, I'm all right not to have that plan.
Yeah, sometimes. So yeah, you do find some people have it all planned out and they know exactly how to get there. So I was just trying to take lots of opportunities and find out what actually existed. Okay. So for example, before I started working at the Centre for Life, I didn't know that science communication was a thing that you can do. And there's loads of different aspects to that. So I was doing it in a science centre and I now do it in a kind of outdoor setting. But there's staff and students in universities doing it, there's freelancers, there's journalists. And it's very much a sector in its own right that I just didn't know existed. So yeah, I think, and when I started applying for things after university, I just kept it quite wide and thought, okay, there's something that I could do. I'll try for that and just see how it goes.
In terms of kind of the other questions, I'm going to ask you a few different ones, but also going back to what you said during the session as well. Do you think, because as you said, you did so many different things at university, do you think that, how do you feel university actually helped you get to where you are today?
So the jobs I've had required a degree as a requirement of applying for that. So that was the first stage, and that kind of broad natural sciences range has been quite good. So obviously, what I do now is particularly on the geology side, but knowing enough about the wildlife and about the history that sort of surrounds that is really useful as well. But it's the other skills that you pick up too. So things like just being independent and getting a bit of confidence. So some of those kind of societies I mentioned, I was taking on roles like being a treasurer, that kind of thing, which gave me a bit of confidence and could also demonstrate some skills that I could then put on a CV, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. With societies, you get a lot out of it from clubs, meeting people, but you can actually get a lot as well in terms of those additional skills on top of it as well. Yeah,
and it's kind of working out how to make the most of those, because a lot of people have a lot of skills that they haven't quite realized they've got. So like I was saying about, if what you're doing is working, then you can have loads of transferable skills.
Exactly. And I think people sometimes go, but I'm not doing that job, so I'm doing, like working in a supermarket and working in the bar, whatever. But you're right, you get the good skills from those jobs as well. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Yeah, and I've interviewed people who've kind of played down those that they've picked up because they didn't think it was that relevant. It's like, no, you work in a bar, you talk to people all the time, and normal people, not just university students. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, you can handle people in different situations. Yeah. In terms of what relevant work experience, we've talked there about general. In terms of your role, do you think that you would have got to where you are now if you didn't do the explainer one and you move up within? Do you think that was needed, or what's the kind of?
Yeah, from my point of view, it definitely was. So each step I couldn't have started at that point. I had to sort of start at the bottom, as it were. So the explainer role for me, that was a lot of the customer service kind of thing, the engaging with people, and the presentation and communication skills, all that kind of thing, and getting used to the sector and how things worked. And then at the next step up, I was then training people and developing those programs. So I needed that kind of initial understanding of how it all worked. And then for the job I do now, it was really useful to be able to show particularly things like the project management skills, so the administration and a bit of budgeting and applying for funding and that kind of thing.
How does it feel? Because the funding thing was interesting. You were saying you've got two different funding sides to your job, and it's a constant kind of going out searching for funding, and there's only a core part of actual government information or money for you guys. How does that feel? Because obviously is it unnerving, or actually is it because that's the normal thing that it's okay? How does that make you feel when you have to go for funding?
Yeah, it varies a bit. So I've only been on that kind of one project so far, and the two different projects I was talking about. So usually when you get grant funding, it has to be match funded with funding from somewhere else. So those two projects kind of work together, and there's quite a bit of overlap. And when I applied for this job, it was to take on that 3-year project. So I applied, I had been in a permanent position before, and I took on this 3-year temporary position. But from the point of view of, okay, 3 years is quite a long time. That's enough to get really stuck into something and to have a chance to sort of feel stable and decide what's next. So when this project finishes, well, part of my job is to apply for funding for something to follow on from this project to find out what's next. If that's not successful, and obviously the funding climate at the moment is going to be more difficult than ever, and my project's due to finish next year, if that doesn't come up with anything, then I will be hunting for jobs again. So I'm not worried by it at the moment. I think it'll be difficult when I get there, but I accepted right from the start that it'll be a short-term thing that will develop things further and be good in its own right. And then if I have to move on and do something else afterwards, that's okay.
Yeah, it's just knowing that, I suppose, having that plan in place.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, all my colleagues, well, most of my colleagues are working on a similar sort of basis. And there's some people who've been with the AONB partnership moving from one project to another for quite a few years now. And I'm actually relatively new to the team, but yeah, there is quite a high turnover and people moving to different organisations that do similar things as well.
I suppose that's how you spread your skills as well, how you gain other ideas from other people because you are moving around. And as you said, that network that you have as well is a very powerful way of learning as well as gaining from it.
Yeah, that's been really good. So nationally, there's the network of AONBs, and then internationally, the Geoparks network. And me focusing on the geology, that's something that I've particularly had the chance to get involved in and get to know. Lots of great people across the UK and across the world.
It just sounds exciting. In terms of that location, because again, some of our students would rather stay in the Northeast. Is that something you wanted to do as well, or was that just something that happened? What did you think about location of where you were going after university?
A bit of both, really. So yeah, I graduated from Durham and I was sort of looking all over the country at that point, and I focused a bit on the places I had links to, so the Northeast, or I'm originally from Nottingham, so like the East Midlands as well. And I did focus on that a bit, but I was kind of looking everywhere at that point. But then I saw the job at the Centre for Life, so I moved to Newcastle for the first year. And then my boyfriend was also at Durham University and graduated the year after me. So I moved back to Durham when he graduated, and that's where I still live now. So I'm one of those people who came to the Northeast for university and I liked it. So then when I kind of got to the point when I was at Life where I was thinking about, okay, I'm not so motivated anymore, I'm not getting as much out of this, it's time to start looking for the next thing. I was planning very much to stay in the Northeast and was looking at what was around here. So if you can be flexible and move around, you're more likely to obviously find the opportunities that you really want. But as I said, think about what's important to you. So if the really important thing is actually where you live and where the job is and how you're going to travel to get there and all that kind of thing, that's fine.
Yeah, make sure it works for you, really, isn't it? Yeah. When, you said you interviewed a few people, because obviously, you will bring in volunteers, and actually previous job as well, you probably were interviewing as you were going along. What do you look for in candidates that are joining your team? So kind of your sector, your area, what are the key things you're always looking for?
Well, with the kind of jobs I've done in particular, I'm looking for people who can talk to people. Okay. So you don't want, obviously, everybody is nervous in an interview. Everybody is going to be a bit shy and a bit uncertain, and you have to see past that, obviously. But I can't have somebody who I think is going to completely clam up the moment they find themselves in front of an audience or in a slightly difficult situation. So that's one of the things. And I like to get a bit of the real person as well, because you want to try to ask questions sometimes that'll get to see what they think is important and not just the sort of stock answers. And one of my favorite interview questions is, what's the best idea you've ever had?
Okay.
Yeah. And that comes up with all sorts of things. So I've had people come up with, something they've made, or their final year project where they've had to plan lots of field work and been really independent and go out and do things like that, or a job they've had, or something, a piece of writing they've done. It could be anything. So I also like that bit of variety, to know that people aren't completely focused on one subject. Yeah, because it's always been useful to have people who are a bit rounded, who are interested in different things, and that makes them interesting people. And it also makes them, I imagine, easier to work with, which again is a really important thing. You're constructing a team who are going to work well together.
And I suppose then you start to see the matches showing you that they enjoyed that. So again, as you said, they're becoming more natural with that question.
Yeah, I want to know what people are like when they geek out.
Yeah. So you know what I'm going to ask you now, Naomi? What would be your answer to that question?
Oh, the best idea you've ever had. No, yeah. I did get asked this in an interview once.
Oh, right. Okay.
And And my answer on that occasion, so this was when I was interviewed for this job, when I was still working at Life. So I once did a science show, so a science demonstration show that I was writing and then training the explainers to perform. And one of my colleagues had come up with, so we'd already got the theme that it was going to be about light and things that glow. And my colleague said, oh, I wonder if we can make the whole thing a story, connect lots of things together and make it into a sort of fictional story, but with bits of science. And I took on writing that one, and I was there going, I don't think I can make one coherent story that's going to have enough different things and that's going to make it work. So what I did was look for some different folk tales. So chose some aspects of light and things, and look for folk tales from different cultures about that link to that, and then that we could link the science in with, and we put some of them to music, and that was shadow puppets, and it turned into actually a really lovely show that I had so much fun doing. And it looked nice, thanks to mostly to some of my colleagues. It was a bit different, and it also ended up being one of those things where it was actually very easy to do. It didn't involve needing lots of kind of clear up time or set up time, which was actually really important for what I was doing. So it ticked all the boxes, but in a nice and slightly unusual way.
I suppose you never know, with all the work that you've done, things just come up unexpectedly as well. So you do quite a lot of thinking on your feet. In terms of that, where do you think you got that from? Was that maybe from when you were leading the guides, or was that from doing project work? Where have you got that kind of skill?
Bit of a combination. So I mean, things with leading your group. So volunteering with the guides. Obviously, you've got to, if you're on camp, say, and something goes wrong, you've got to be able to deal with that situation and with whatever comes up. So a bit of that. Some of the work things, because working with the public, anything can happen. And also deliberately developing some of those improvisation skills as well. So because performing and public speaking was quite a big part of what I was doing, we did actually focus on having a go at improvisation and developing that skill specifically.
Did you find presentations easy when you started university? Because a lot of students start stage one and they're right, semester one, do a presentation, and it's just, they've never done it before. So how did you progress?
No, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And people who are really good at it make it look really easy, but that's usually because they've had a lot of practice and put an awful lot of thought into how they do it. So I'd say I'm naturally quite a shy person. I may not be coming across that right now, but I'm training myself not to be. I'm quite a shy person. Getting up in front of people, even though I do it quite regularly now, I still get nervous, and I still find that, and that's fine. Like they say that to be a good presenter, you need to be confident. No, you need everybody else to believe that you're confident, even if you don't believe it. So that's something. The confidence is something I've very much evolved, and that knowledge that if it goes wrong, it's okay, that you can deal with that. And actually dealing in terms of like being in front of an audience, dealing with things going wrong makes them love you. Audiences love it when stuff goes wrong and you cope with it well. That's sometimes better than everything going perfectly. So knowing that it doesn't matter, that it doesn't have to be perfect, is quite an important thing as well. And
that you practice it a lot, don't you?
And don't be scared of the silence. If you're up in front of people and you freeze, to you it feels like forever. To them it probably feels like the 1 second that it actually was. Pausing is okay. You do not have to fill every little moment.
Silence can be powerful, can't it? So use it, even if you didn't intend to. Excellent. Well, I'm going to ask you one last question, if that's all right, Naomi.
Yes.
We're asking everyone who's coming on to our partners to do this as well. So it's just considering your time at university and your own career, what one bit of advice would you like to share with the partner students?
I think I would probably go back to that. It's okay not to have a plan.
Yeah.
That you will find different opportunities. They might take you in completely unexpected directions. And that's actually great.
Yeah. So don't be worried about not having that plan.
Yeah.
And remember, there's lots of people you can speak to about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you will develop a plan as you go along. There's loads of different places you can find information. There's people that can help. And they'll know about things that you just didn't know existed and had never considered as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated that. And I'm sure our students will appreciate listening to what we've been talking about today and learn a lot from it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this recording of the Partners 2020 Ask the Expert session. We hope you found the discussion and the presentations from our guests useful and insightful. Remember to stay up to date with further advice from alumni and industry professionals. Subscribe to our Newcastle University Career Service YouTube channel, and you can follow us on our social media channels at NCL Careers on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We hope to see you in September. Good luck and take care.